You want to grab a cup of coffee, get your favorite seat, and we'll move on. During this hour, 45 minutes, I am scheduled to talk about steps 4, 5, and 6. And we'll see if we get there or not, but hopefully we will. So we finished the first step in step 4 of finding out what these blockages are between us and contact with a personal higher power. That's the purpose of the whole program. So now we have this list, and we might have something like this, and we've written it all down, and we've just taken hours, and we put all this together. And this is our best assessment of who we are and what our problems are. And one of the things that we generally find as a character defect is that we rationalize a lot. Well, if we rationalize a lot, how do we know that what we wrote down here is worth anything? How do we know this isn't all crap, that we're just kidding ourselves, that I just wrote this whole thing out? I was just trying to be as honest as I could. How do I know how valuable this piece of paper is? And the answer is we don't, but we have a step that's going to help us do that. And that's the point of the 5th step. I like to think of the 5th step as taking a 2-dimensional sheet of paper and putting a 3rd dimension on it, which is perspective. And that can only be done with another human being. That's the way it was set up. Nobody can see the real truth about themselves alone. That's just the way the deal was set up. Not you, not some great enlightened person, nothing. Bill writes in the 12 and 12, people of very high spiritual development, which is way beyond us, people of very high spiritual development always insist on checking with others the guidance they feel they're getting from God. Always insist on checking with others. Why? Because all human beings have red little minds that like to jump in there and go bloop, 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 and come up with all kinds of stuff. And I was just talking to God. He told me to blow up a building. Oh, really? Really? Did he tell you that? Oh, yes. I just... And then we run it by your sponsors. If he agrees, I'll help you get the dynamite. And so we go to our sponsors. Yeah, God wants me to... Oh, I don't think that was God. I think that was your ego. Put on a disguise, came in and said, "Hi, Henry, this is God speaking." So, in the 5th step, we're learning something here. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. And, of course, it doesn't take long. We're brand new. We read that step. We can speed read it and see the one part that we don't like. Is it admitting to God? No, that's not the one. Admitting to ourselves? No, that's not the one. It's that other human being one that we just don't want to get involved. Such is our nature to try and see the world by ourselves. We want to be self-sufficient. And again, I go back to my Marine Corps days. One of the squadrons I was in was a photo squadron. And aerial photography, they want you to go out and take a bunch of pictures, and no matter how fast you're going, you had to adjust all this stuff. Computers weren't in when I was back then. You did it manually. And they wanted you to bring back pictures of this whole area you were going over that were exactly 60% overlapped. Why? So they could see the 3rd dimension. You remember those little video or those things when we were kids, and they had 2 postcards, and you put them in and you went like that, and you could see it just jumped out at you? Well, to me, that's what the going to another human being with our inventory is, to bring out the 3rd dimension about ourselves. And so we take this 2-dimensional sheet, we pocket our fears, we get our courage together, and we select someone to talk over this inventory that we've done. Admit it to God, to ourselves, another human being. What are we doing this for? Some kind of punishment? Okay, you've been a bad boy. You got to go talk to somebody about this. That's what I felt like. You've been a bad boy. You have to go talk to somebody about that. Go see the principal. Go take your bad list and go see your sponsor. That's not it at all. You didn't do anything wrong. You're not a bad person. This has nothing to do with that. This is to help us see the truth for the first time. And are we going to be surprised when we get in there? Some of the things that we thought were the worst are going to turn out to be not so serious after all. And some of the stuff we swept under the rug, oh yeah, that's a little problem, it's really not big, we'll suddenly find, holy cow, that's what's really been ruining my life more than I ever thought. This is a wonderful opportunity to see the power of not living by ourselves. That's all we're trying to get in AA is power. And so what happens when we go and share this, setting all our fears aside, whenever I'm sponsoring somebody and they want to come over, I always go, are you ready to do your fifth step? Okay, let's start with the worst secret you've got and get that out of the way. You know what I'm saying? And, secrets, and everybody has secrets. A secret is a decision to not share something with somebody. The secrets don't get automatically labeled that. It doesn't come out that this is a secret. It's a decision by me to not share something because I might look bad. The problem with a secret is it has tremendous power. It sits inside of us, and we carry it year after year. And the only person that knows we have it is us. I have this secret. Why is that secret so powerful? Because I can't share it. That's what gives it its power. I have said this can't be shared with anybody. I have to keep it alone. The second I share it, it turns out it was all crap. It doesn't have any power. It could have been shared a long time ago. I made it all up in my head that I had to keep this a secret. And that's how I ruin my own life, by keeping these things. And once they get started, when you made this decision when you were 15, I'm going to never tell anyone in my whole life. The second you made that juvenile decision when you were 15, you sentenced yourself to 35 years of unnecessary fear that somebody would find out, burden, and to making yourself into a bad person. I'm so bad that I did that. I'm so bad that I did that. And then you talk to your sponsor about it, says, oh, I did that a lot. What's the deal? And you go, well, I've been agonizing over this all my life. Well, you were stupid. And I use that word because it's all throughout our big book. You will find, you check me out on this, and you'll see that here's this complex situation, and you think you're going to need a psychiatrist. And Bill said, we were just very stupid in that area. That was a stupid decision to carry that secret for 20 years. And now that you shared it, don't you agree it was a stupid decision? Yeah, what the hell did I do that for? Well, you made a stupid decision and stuck with it, because you're a guy who never changes his mind. Remember that? I don't change my mind. Yeah, I know, it shows. When I make a decision, I stay with it. Stupid or not, I stay with it. And then we go, why? Well, you got to have convictions. No, yeah, well, you get enough of those. It's all ego, and it's all old ideas. It's our old plan that we put together in our head, a lot of it before we were 12, and we're still living by it. Yes, sir. Never trust a guy that won't drink with you. Where'd that come from? Where'd that come from? But it was there. So all these things are put on the table, and finally, there's this wonderful freedom. I'm trying to think. Let me see. Well, the 12 and 12. There's promises in the. Let's read the ones out of the fifth step in the 12 and 12. 5. Well, here's out of the big book. That's right. I tore out pages when I used to do this lecture. This is what is written at the end of the steps in our literature. Once we have taken the step withholding nothing, we're delighted. We can look at the world, we can look the world in the eye. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel we're on the broad highway, walking hand in hand with the Spirit of the universe. Then the 12 and 12, same spot, right after the fifth step. Provided you hold back nothing, your sense of relief will mount from minute to minute. The dammed up emotions of years break out of their confinement and miraculously vanish as soon as they are exposed. As the pain subsides, a healing tranquility takes its place. And when humility and serenity are so combined, something else of great moment is apt to occur. Many an AA, once agnostic or atheist, tells us it was during this stage of step 5 that he actually first felt the presence of God. And even those who had faith already often became conscious of God as they never were before. So you can see the fifth step is a learning experience of stopping the old idea of solving your problems by yourself and starting this new way of having a spiritual companion, a sponsor, a spiritual advisor, a home group, whatever it may take. And we carry this on into the 10th step, where when we're wrong, we promptly admit it. In other words, I'm inventorying, I'm promptly admitting. I'm talking about this with other human beings. So it's something that we start here and then carry it forth for a lifetime. I talked to my sponsor, but when I moved to Tampa, I got 4 or 5 guys who I get close to. I have dinner with them once a week. The whole purpose of the dinner, what's going on? Hey, Joe, you're not sharing something. I can see you're not yourself. What is going on? It's to pry out these secrets that happened during the week that we're embarrassed about. And out they come, and then they're gone. Then they're gone. They can't bother us anymore. So that's the power of step 5. Okay, step 6. Now we're getting into some heavy-duty stuff. 6 and 7. 6 and 7 in the big book are covered in 2 little paragraphs. Beep, beep, beep. Say a little prayer. Are you willing to get rid of everything? Okay, now we're finished. I think 12 years later, when Bill wrote the 12 and 12, he said, I think I'll take another look at those 2 steps. And guess what he wrote in the 6th step? This is the step that separates the men from the boys. Is that the one we went poop in the big book? Yep, that's the one we went poop in the big book. So it's a very deep step. So here it is. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. That's step 6. We're entirely ready. So what is he going to remove? You know, we made this list. We want to get rid of this stuff. It's bugging the hell out of us. We want to get rid of it. We're so willing, we even went over and talked to another person about the exact nature of what this is. So of course I want God to get rid of it. Who in the room doesn't want to get? You, yes, sir, I want to get rid of all these character defects. I absolutely do. And I'll tell you what it's like. It's like the U.S. Congress balancing the budget. You want to balance the budget? Yes, I want to balance the budget. Of course I want to balance it. Does everybody in here want to balance the budget? Yes, I want to balance the budget. Okay, well, we're going to have to cut your benefit and raise your taxes. You still want to balance the budget? Well, let's balance most of the budget, but let's not balance the little narrow part where you have to raise my taxes. And let's not balance that little part where you have to cut my program. It's in the specifics that balancing the budget gets shot down. Everybody loves the idea. It's in the specifics that it just crumbles. Right? Right? Well, guess what happens with our own lives here when we make this proclamation in the 6th step? Entirely ready. You're damn right I want all these things removed. Well, let's take a closer look. Are you sure you never want to gossip again? What about a incredibly juicy little tidbit that you're the only one that knows? Could we make just one exception and perhaps get rid of 90% of gossip? Would that be okay? Wouldn't that be progress over blabbermouth today? We'll get rid of 90% of the gossip. Okay? Let's move on. What about anger? You want to get rid of it all? I mean, aren't there certain things you ought to get angry at? Isn't it kind of fun to be angry once in a while? You know, the movies, that angry young man. I like an angry attitude once in a while. It's fun. You know, it's just, so, I mean, I don't want to be so angry I shoot somebody. You know what I mean? So on anger, I like to get rid of 70%. 70%. Give me a 70 on anger. All right, let's see. What else we got here? Lust. Oh, man. Yeah, we got to get rid of that lust. Get rid of that lust. Let's go on. Well, what would it be if you had no lust? Ooh, never thought about that. You mean like zero? Is that like a eunuch or, I mean, what is zero lust? Does that mean like you never get any? I mean, put me down for 50% on lust. Put me down for 50%. I'll deal with the other 50%. I want to see what we're talking about before we go to the extreme of getting rid of total lust. I don't care what it is. You name it. Bill writes about this. He says, you know, the funny thing is, we enjoy some of our character defects. We get a secret little pleasure out of a whole bunch of our character defects. We just don't want them to get us in trouble. And I can remember, you know, I was working in Washington after I got bounced out of the Marine Corps as a lobbyist, and you have to go up and tell stories and write speeches and testimony, but you have to get your cause across. And total honesty sometimes doesn't work. So I thought this through, and I decided that what you needed in terms of honesty, you see, this step would have you be totally honest. I mean, that's just a little extreme. So, and Bill writes about this. What I wanted was to be honest enough to be known as an honest person. What I wanted was an honest reputation. But I still wanted the wiggle room of lying once in a while when it was absolutely necessary. You follow what I'm saying? And it seemed to me that if I worked this step, I might lose the wiggle room part. So put me down for an 85 on honesty. I need the wiggle room to maneuver once in a while. So as you can see, as we go through this, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. We compromise on every character defect that we have for one reason or another, giving us a big 0 on step 7. So it certainly is the one that separates the men from the boys. So Bill goes back and he said, what is the problem here? What is the problem here? Why are we having such a hard time with this step? And he said, our minds will tell us this. This is what we'll generally do. Because we don't want to admit that for selfish reasons, we want to keep some of our character defects because our sponsor would get all over our butt. So we're not going to say that. So we come up with this story. How do you like this story? Listen, I've never seen anybody with their character defects entirely removed. How do we know it's possible? Everybody buying into that? Are you buying in? Are we? This is working, right? This is helping. We finally came up with a beautiful little cover story for not doing step 6. I've never seen anybody with all their character defects removed, so how do we know it's possible? And then Bill says, well, unfortunately, everyone in this room knows it's possible. Alcoholics know more than anybody else. Because your biggest character defect, your drinking, you did become entirely ready to have God remove it 100%. And what happened? It went away. Yee! So each one of us knows that if you really can summon the willingness to have it removed and humbly asked, it will be. Therefore, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to move on to another step is what we're going to do. So this is the lifetime challenge in this step because it's talking about perfection. That's what it's talking about. And so you know what sobriety consists of? It consists of trying to achieve perfection and never getting there and being satisfied with that. Someone once wrote that the definition of maturity is being comfortable with unresolved problems. And that's what this is. I know that it's so hard for me to get the willingness to totally want to get rid of this. It just is so hard. But I'm going to try. I'm going to pray for the willingness. And as we move along, people once said, what do old-timers do? And you hear old-timers talking back and forth. What are you doing? 6 and 7. What are you doing? 6 and 7. I'm looking for one more thing that I could please get the willingness to get rid of. Because getting rid of things is to move on spiritually. I like to think of spirituality as like riding in a hot air balloon. And the higher you go, the better the view, if you could look at it that way. Spirituality is climbing a big mountain, so the higher up you go, the better the view, and the more you like it. Well, the only way to get that balloon to go higher sometimes is to throw something else overboard. One more. What else have we got in the ballast we can throw overboard so that this thing will go up a little bit higher? What else could I change my mind about and get willing about? What else could I please get willing to get rid of? And there's always something. There's thousands of things when we really inventory this area. So the 6th and 7th step are lifetime challenges to see how close we can get to this magic thing called 100% willingness to get rid of something. I'm trying to think. I had a couple little notes. Oh, yeah. I always told a story years ago when I was doing this step that illustrated it to me. And the story is about a little boy, maybe about 10 or 11. He's in the baseball league. And his team has the big game of the season the next day. And the coach said, don't practice anymore today. All I want you to do tonight is eat a nice dinner, go to bed real early, and get a minimum of 8 hours sleep. That's all you need. If you are rested, you're going to perform wonderful tomorrow. Okay. He eats the dinner, he goes to bed early. And along about 10 o'clock, he wakes up because he's having a little toothache. It's just starting to tingle. You know how a toothache starts? It's like, ooh, ow, ooh. And he knows, he's had one of these before, he knows if he calls his mother and gets a couple aspirin, it'll go away and he'll go right back to sleep. And then he'll play well in the baseball game. But he doesn't call his mother. He waits hoping it'll go away by itself. It doesn't go away. An hour later, it just signals a little bit louder. And he knows if he calls his mother and gets 2 aspirin, it'll go away. He doesn't call his mother. He never calls his mother. He wakes up every hour. Finally, about 5 in the morning, he calls his mother. My tooth is bothering me. And she gives him 2 aspirin. He goes to sleep. Gets up the next day, sleeps fine because the aspirin take away that little minor pain. Goes out, plays terrible. The question is, why didn't he ask for the aspirin sooner? And the answer is because he knew his mother. And he knew that his mother wasn't just going to give him the 2 aspirin. The mother was going to make a dental appointment to see what was wrong with the tooth. He didn't want to go to the dentist. He just wanted 2 aspirin. He knew when he went to the dentist that the dentist wasn't going to stop with that tooth because he never stops with that tooth. He says, while you're here, let's look at them all. And then he looks and he finds 2 other cavities. So he gets scheduled for 3 appointments. He doesn't get out of the deal until he has perfect teeth. He just wanted 2 aspirin. He doesn't want perfect teeth. He just wants 2 aspirin. You see what I'm saying? But the only help that's available is perfect help. And that's the problem in a spiritual program. The only time God will help us, you can't pray to God, God, make me semi-honest, please, 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 God. Please, God, get rid of most of this lust. Please, God, just let me be angry once in a while instead of all the time. We get no help for that. 0, 0, 0 help. You want to be semi-honest? You got to do it on your own. You see what I'm saying? The only help that's available is perfect help. And as soon as you want that, you got it in spades. Yes, I'll be glad to come in. Take away gossiping forever. If you can get willing to want that. Man, when does that willingness come? You know what I mean? And so time goes by and we're just going, I know the deal. Why can't I get willing? Because I'm a human being. And part of me wants to be spiritual, and part of me enjoys all this stuff. And we're in two worlds at once. You see what I'm saying? We got the spiritual side of ourselves, and then we got the part we're in the material world. And so we just have to struggle, and the material world wins part of the time, and then we go, I'm tired of that. And finally we get tired enough that we're willing to move on and get willing to get some other area worked on. Then comes the second of the dynamic duo of 6 and 7. Having explained the difficulty of achieving the willingness, in step 6 we come up against step 7, shortest step of all the steps. Humbly ask God to remove our shortcomings. Shortest, is that simple or not? Just think about it. We got these lists, we got the shortcoming, I think I've become willing, so now I'm going to work step 7, and what is step 7? It's pretty simple. You just go like this. Hey God, would you please remove these character defects? Well, that's almost step 7. What I did there was what I would call regular asking. Okay? That's regular asking. You just go, hey God, would you remove these character defects? That's regular asking. What the step says is we want to humbly ask. So the question is, what's the difference between regular asking, which I just did, and humbly asking? So I'll pass out some papers and everybody do a 4-page essay on the difference between regular asking and humbly asking. And if you're like the rest of us, most of us, you have nothing to say. Why don't we have anything to say about that? Because, as Bill explains in the 12 and 12, humility has had a hard time of it in our society. You don't hardly ever hear about humility, do you? Did you ever see a product on television that said, hey, drink Bud, get humble?